Hello everyone, what's going on? It's Kriegus, and today I'm going to be talking about a condition that might not be familiar to you, but is very common and could be detrimental to your through hiking experience. So let's get into it, and just to preface, I'm not an expert, but someone who has experienced it firsthand. So I will be just talking about my personal experience and trying to explain as best as possible so it doesn't happen to anyone else. So let's get right into it. The condition we're going to be talking about today is called rhabdomyolysis. We're going to be talking about what it is, what my personal experience with it is, and how to avoid contracting it as best as possible. Now, to start off with what rhabdo is. Rhabdomyolysis is a condition in which the proteins in your muscles deteriorate through overexertion and overheating and flood into your bloodstream, causing organ failure in your kidneys. This happens to a lot of endurance athletes, ultramarathon runners, people who are just pushing their bodies to the sheer limits. But it also happens to people in the gym. It happens to people in their every day-to-day life. And it could happen to you at any moment. And it's not to scare you or anything, but it's just something to be aware of because it is something that can happen to anyone, anytime, depending on how malnourished your body is or how much you're pushing it in a given scenario. Just some personal information, just in case you don't know me before I get into my story. My name is Christopher Regas. I go by Kriegus on trail. I'm a 23-year-old from Florida, and basically I've been through hiking trails since 2021, and it's my dream to be able to do so and basically make a career out of it. To inspire people to go out and push their limits and to accomplish my own dreams of just completing some of the biggest endurance challenges ever. To elaborate more on my personal experience, I'll try and summarize this a bit more, but if you are curious about what happened and the details of it, I wrote an article on the trek, and you are more than welcome to check that out. I'll leave the link in the description below. Just to summarize what had occurred though, I was attempting a Continental Divide Trail through hike southbound in June of 2024. And everything was going great until about a month in. I started feeling very weird around the Benchmark Wilderness Lincoln area. I ended up getting stuck out on trail for about 2 days. My body was purging all of my nutrients and excuse me. And I basically had to just zero out on trail, and it was very scary and just like very sudden. I wasn't too sure what was going on, but in my delirious state, I had noticed while I was laying in my tent that I had 2 ticks on me for what I think was around 24 hours. Now this was concerning, so I started paying attention to just how my body was reacting physically. There wasn't any reaction going on visually. I figured that maybe it was the cause of why I was feeling so weird. I ended up being able to recoup a little bit, and thankfully, shout out Pegleg. She was a hiker that was behind me, a good friend of mine, and she was able to give me some Pepto-Bismol and just overall motivation to push out of there and get to town. So I ended up doing around a 30-mile day to get out of the woods and into the town of Lincoln. Not 100% whatsoever, but thankfully they gave me the motivation to make it to town and rest up safely. Since what had occurred only really lasted around 48 hours, I had just assumed that it was what I have had previously on almost every hike that I've been on, and that's norovirus. I've had that before on multiple trails, and it does only last like a few days, so I'd only assumed that it was that just through prior experience. It was something that was a lot worse, and I basically felt better and recouped in Lincoln, took 2 days off, and felt extremely better. Felt actually better than when I had been hiking before, and was very optimistic about me getting over the sickness. Well, when I left Lincoln, I ended up getting even worse, and I look back at it now and should have stayed in the next town, which was Helen. But I just went in and out and got a resupply and hit the road. Well, I had a pretty long road walk out of Helen, and basically got a bit overheated and started feeling the same symptoms all over again when I woke up the next day. Kind of on and off. I was feeling, like it was something that I could push through, but it was just not ideal. I really should have gotten to town immediately, and that was my only goal, was to just get to town and wait until I was 100%, and then to just stop pushing myself so hard, really start getting analytical about what I was doing. But it was too late by then. I made it to the town of Butte, and I was just not feeling good at all. My body was purging all the nutrients I was intaking, and I was only able to hike 2 miles at a time. It was really bad. And I made it to the town of Butte and immediately went to urgent care. Well, when I got to urgent care, they handed me a waiver to fill out, and I could not, for the life of me, keep my hand from violently shaking, and I couldn't write my name. And this was obviously a cause of concern for the person who was working the front desk, and she was like, I'm gonna take your pulse and just make sure you're doing all right. Well, my pulse was 240 beats per minute. I was on the verge of heart attack and or stroke, so she immediately called an ambulance after a little freak out, and they escorted me to the hospital, and the doctor told me that if I didn't show up a day earlier, that I would have died. So this was very alarming to me because it did not feel as serious as it was. Obviously, I was, feeling terrible, but it felt like normal symptoms of norovirus or some sort of stomach bug that just wouldn't go away. But it was actually way more extreme, and I officially got diagnosed with traumatic rhabdomyolysis. As for my hospital experience in general, it was absolutely terrible. I had people barging into my room at 2 a.m. to check my vitals when there wasn't any reason to be doing that. I was humiliating myself by, just being in such a fragile state. And I had to get shots in my stomach because I was laying down for so long that there was increased chance of blood clots. Just overall, such a bad experience with just food and recovery in the hospital, other than the IV bags, which were very helpful. And aside from just the terrible experience in the hospital, because I was in the hospital trying to figure out what was wrong with me and try and get some more information from experts to try and prevent this from happening in the future, I waited extra time trying to meet with this doctor that was an expert in tick-borne illnesses and trying to, be patient and wait for something that could maybe be useful information regarding my health in the future. Well, my prolonged stay at the hospital only racked up a bigger bill for me, and my attempt to wait for an expert was futile, and I ended up just having to go home, and it was very frustrating, and I'm suffering the consequences for it now. So now left with a huge medical debt because unfortunately in the United States they profit off of you being sick or you having to go to the hospital. Actually, as I filmed this video, learned that my insurance isn't covering a majority of the payment because they claim that it's self-inflicted. And even though I appealed it, they still denied it, and I'm probably gonna have to start a payment plan here right before I start hiking for the season because the United States doesn't want to help me cover it. I try and work as hard as I can to save up to go hiking, but sometimes life just doesn't let it happen so easily. But yeah, still going to try my best because I'm very passionate about hiking, and it, you know, I've never had a greater adventure than when I go out and do this. So I'm still going to try my best to do it, but as of right now, yeah, it's kind of putting a damper on my financial situation as a United States citizen. I flew back to Florida and was just trying to recuperate, but my body was just completely messed up. I had to basically relearn how to walk. Every time I would get up and walk, I would pass out. If I looked at lights that were too bright, I would pass out. I couldn't maintain my balance. It was very bad. I completely underestimated the illness that I had. And like sleeping 14 hours a day, just trying to like walk again, taking blood tests, and just trying to figure out what happened so I could, you know, pinpoint it and recover and try not to ever get it again. But there were so many factors and so many different things that happened that it was so hard to pinpoint it. And the fact that the doctor who specialized in tick-borne illnesses never showed up while I was in the hospital, I wasn't able to get 100% assurance on whether it was from the ticks or not. Now, I can only speculate that had some sort of effect because obviously, you know, having ticks on you for over 24 hours is not a good scenario in any situation. So just the fact that happened, you know, made me speculate, okay, this could definitely be a contributor to my deterioration in health. But I'm not 100% about it, and I don't even really have the credentials to speak on it as a certainty. But I will say that there is a possibility that if you do have a tick-borne illness or you are bitten by a tick, that it could lead into something a bit more drastic than just getting like a little sick from it. I've had ticks on me before, and I've never had something, you know, happen this bad. It was that experience in itself from my past hiking trips that led me to underestimate what was happening and put me in a very dangerous situation. Now, there aren't any real ways to prevent rhabdo, but there are ways to avoid it. Obviously, if it was from ticks, treat your clothes and check every night or every so often, make sure you don't have any on you. Trying to stay on top of your nutrient levels when you are exerting your body past that limit, which is very hard while you're hiking, but is possible. So, you know, just making sure you're not like getting way too overheated. I was hiking during a huge heat wave in Montana, and ultimately I think that combined with the other factors is what made me get so sick. I'm not here to give you the answer as to like what to do to have this never happen to you, but I'm just here to tell you about my personal experience and maybe even just emphasize the fact that rhabdomyolysis is a thing, because I had no idea about it until I had contracted it, and I just want to make sure that it's a bit more well known. In the hiking community, I had never really heard someone talk about it before, and if just talking about it more and getting people a bit more informed, or even just like introducing it to them, could reduce the risk of people getting it, then it's worth it. Thankfully, I wasn't wiped off the map from this, and I could express it a bit more and you know, maybe even prevent someone from getting it in the future. And basically, I don't really have any other things to say. I just wanted to elaborate on my personal experience and like I said, just kind of get this into the zeitgeist and make sure that people, you know, have even just like heard about the condition in itself. Like I said, I'm no expert on this subject, and I don't want to speak any more about it than I know. So if you guys have any more information that you would like to share about rhabdomyolysis and or just hiking tips in general, leave some comments about it, and I'll even maybe make another video in the future. That way we can, you know, in the hiking community, kind of bring a lot of these things to light to decrease the chances of it happening in the future. Obviously, the biggest goal with making this video is to share my experience, to make sure that maybe even one person could benefit from it. I want everyone in the hiking community to stay safe and healthy and achieve their dreams, achieve these huge feats of hiking thousands of miles and completing trails. It's great to see people do that. It feels great to do it, and I hope that as the years go by, we can get more and more accustomed to the dangers of hiking these long trails. Make sure everyone's safe and has fun out there hiking. So yeah, thank you for watching, and hope everyone has a great day. Stay tuned.